Deep beneath the soil in Scotland lies one of the largest Neolithic stones ever discovered. If it had been left above ground, it might have drawn more visitors than Stonehenge. Music, but something strange happened. After excavating it, the archaeologists chose not to display it. Instead, they reburied it for good. Whatever they felt, whatever they saw, it was enough to seal the stone music back into the earth. Why though? Music mean we know Neolithic people drew and carved warnings and important pieces of information on music stone. That's why the Cockno stone was so intriguing when it was first discovered. It all began with Reverend James Harvey, a local minister who stumbled upon this enormous slab back in the 1880s near Clydebank, just outside Glasgow, Scotland. The stone was a typical sandstone like the ones you'll find in Stonehenge, but it was a smooth type of sandstone that worked as a canvas. When Harvey found the rock, it was covered in swirling rings, deep grooves, music, and strange cup-like markings. Harvey must have recognized right away that this was no ordinary rock. It was a message from thousands of years ago. As a matter of fact, it was a message straight, music, from 3000 BCE. Cockno means little cups in Gala. The ones who named it were literally describing what they were seeing. Music rings upon connecting rings. These drawings have sparked so many theories. Some experts see them as the earliest forms of written language, like abstract codes that predate words and music. Then there are those who think the stone holds a map of the sky, a way for Neolithic people to track the sun, moon, and stars. Like the pyramids of Giza, which some people believe are hauntingly aligned with the constellation of Orion. The cups and markings on the Cockno stone could be aligned with some special constellation. The most bizarre theory is the one that says the stone was used as a portal. Music, one of the scientists says that locals believe that the drawings could indicate music. This was a place to be reborn, a place where people could sink into the earth only to be born again in this life or in the afterlife. If that were music true, maybe that's why they hid it, right? Not quite. In the 1930s, an archaeologist named Ludovic Mann Music heard about the rock and decided to visit it. This guy had an unusual idea and decided to take paint to the site and paint over the markings on the stone surface. His weird idea had a deeper meaning, though. He was trying to connect the dots literally and see if the stone worked as an ancient astronomical chart. Music, he thought the carvings might predict solar and lunar movements, even eclipses. Music, some say that actually what man did was vandalize the slab of stone. Music, that's maybe why archaeologists decided to rebury the stone back in 1965. Music, they noticed markings of graffiti and erosion from the climate, and agreed that it was best kept safe under the ground. Music, the Cockno stone stretches roughly 43 ftx 26 feet. That's almost the size of a bus. Music, what sets the Cockno stone apart from other slabs of rock is how clear and complex its carvings are. Music, many scientists call it one of the best examples of this prehistoric art in all of Europe. The patterns that show up there can also be found at various Neolithic sites across Europe and beyond, such as Greece, Music, France, Australia, Spain, Italy, and much more. They all share similar cup and ring markings. To be clearer, this type of prehistoric art is also known as a petroglyph. Petroglyphs are carvings made by prehistoric people right into the surface of rocks. Instead of using paint, they chipped, scratched, or pecked at the stone to create images like animals, symbols, spirals, or scenes from daily life. Yet despite all the attention, no music one has cracked the code on the Cockno stone. Instead, this is what happened. For a while, it rested quietly beneath the soil music until it was dramatically unearthed back in 2016. I say dramatically because this decision shook the archaeological community. Archaeologists from the University of Glasgow decided to reopen the site to study the rock once again. But this time, instead of exposing it to the elements, music, they used drones and high-tech 3D scanning to capture every groove and swirl with shocking detail. Music, the team created a digital replica so precise it could be studied without ever touching the real thing ever again. This new approach gave hope that one day the Kokno stone might finally reveal its secrets, or at least help us understand what Neolithic people thought was worth carving into stone and hiding beneath the earth. But this music digital resurrection came with a price. The real stone, vulnerable after centuries underground, had to be buried once more, shielded from the various hands, and lets music face it, smelly feet of the modern world. Now, the Cocknose stone sleeps once again beneath the Scottish soil. Something needs music to be. Clear here is that although researchers haven't decoded the symbols on this rock yet, music, they do know one thing. Neolithic rock art was a powerful form music of communication and spirituality for ancient communities. These carvings were carefully etched onto rocks, scattered across hills, grazing music lands, and near water sources. They likely served practical purposes, such as marking important locations or guiding seasonal movements, but their significance went far beyond that. For Neolithic people, these carved stones were deeply spiritual, acting as connections to ancestors, music, natural forces, and sacred landscapes. The rocks carried meaning as part of a larger relationship between people and their environment. They helped turn the landscape into a living map of both everyday life and spiritual belief. That's probably why we find it all over the world. On the subject of mysterious rocks, music, we need to talk about these petroglyph rocks that also actually sing. Music, I want you to meet the KGAL petroglyphs, which are located in Bellary district of Karnataka, India. This Neolithic or Stone Age site was first discovered in the late 1800s, music lost, and then rediscovered in the early 21st century. These petroglyphs were carved into the dark surface of dolerite rock. Different from the soft and tender sandstone, the dorite rock is a hard, dark volcanic rock formed music from cooled magma. This fascinating rock art focuses mainly on cattle. Music, specifically the long-horned humped variety we still see in the region today. These music aren't just random doodles. Some of the cattle are drawn solo, while others appear in scenes facing off against each other, being ridden by human-like figures, or surrounded by people with bows and arrows, maybe representing hunting or music capture. Beyond cattle and humans, there are a few other music animals like elephants, tigers, deer, and some abstract symbols like dogs, ladders, or footprints. Music, but there aren't big narrative scenes. The most interesting thing here is that Kupka, apart from being visually expressive and super important, also sings. Among its most unique features are the so-called music rock gongs. These rock gongs are boulders with natural cup-like depressions that ring out like bells when they're struck with smaller stones, often called a hammerstone. What happens is music that instead of emitting a dull thud, the rock sings. It's like Earth's own xylophone. This is a real phenomena that can also be found in other parts of the world. Music. These so-called musical rocks emit resonant metallic tones that can be heard for hundreds of feet. Most rocks, when you hit them, don't produce sound because they absorb energy. But music, certain types of rocks, usually the harder ones, are more dense and at the same time elastic enough to vibrate when they're struck. In many ancient cultures, sound was used for more than mere entertainment. For many cultures, sound was used as a bridge to the divine. So, researchers suggest that these gongs might have been used in spiritual ceremonies and gatherings. Music, there's a place on Earth that looks like it came straight out of the movie Dune. Massive platforms of stone and mud rise in the middle of a scorching desert, and somehow people manage to survive in such a hostile environment. Oh, really? But Unli. The movie. Music. This real city in Peru was abandoned over 3,000 years ago and has stayed hidden from us until now. Meet Pineo. This lost city is located in the WRA province north of Music, Lima. After 8 years of excavation and conservation work, some of its secrets have finally been brought to light. It may look eerie and lifeless now, but it wasn't always this way. Experts think this place used to be a busy trading center for ancient Peruvians. In fact, it was part of the oldest known civilization in the Americas. At least music, as far as we know. And no, they weren't the Mayas or the Aztecs. That's a common mistake. I'm talking about the Carol sub-civilization. This society existed more than music 5,000 years ago. That's super old, to put that in perspective. While the Sumerians in Mesopotamia music were reaching their peak, and the Egyptians were just starting to build things in Giza, the people in Corral were already building pyramids. Thanks to them, Peru is now seen as one of the 6 places where civilization first began. But unlike the objects we find music from ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, you won't see Corral artifacts in museums, at least not fancy vases covered in music, mysterious letters, since they didn't know pottery or writing. What they did know music was how to build big. They left behind mind-blowing architecture such as stepped pyramids and huge sunken plazas. You know, like massive open-air arenas big enough to hold hundreds of people. And it's not like they just had one pyramid here and a plaza there. No, as I said, they built big. So far, researchers have found as many as 30 major metropolitan centers across what we now call Coral region, or Peru's north-central coast. You can think of them as full-on cities with residential areas, several plazas, and ceremonial temples. Their largest pyramid, known as Parami de Mayor, stands nearly 100 feet tall with a base covering an area the size of about 4 football fields. That's substantial. Oh my God. And building all that surely wasn't easy. It took planning, coordination, and specialists. That suggests that Corral must have had organized labor and strong leadership to pull it off. Despite creating these incredible constructions, Carol cities stayed hidden for thousands of years. And even when researchers first came across the area, it took decades for them to realize how important it really was. They already knew about the ruins back in the 1940s. Music, but it wasn't until the 90s that the first major study of Corral was done. And there's a reason they were ignored for so long. The architecture was so advanced and the proportions so huge that people thought, nah, this has to be something modern. They couldn't have been more wrong, though. And in 2001, studies finally recognized that Corral was the oldest known civilization in the Americas. Archaeologists believed the society existed from around 300 to 800 years before the Common Era, and for 4,000 years, they flourished in complete isolation. Chances are they never met another civilization at all. This may explain why they are considered such a peaceful society. Researchers haven't found any signs of conflict, no fortifications, no battle gear, no trace of fighting. Instead, they seem more focused on commerce and, well, pleasure. Looks like they love music. Music in one of the temples. For example, archaeologists found 32 flutes made from bird bones. I wonder what that sounded music like. Anyway, the Corral lived along 3 rivers, the Fortaza, the Patavilca, and the Sup. Just like the newly discovered city of Po, this lost city was built on a natural terrace about 1,970 foot above sea level. And no, they didn't do that for the view, it was for security. Building higher up protected them from flooding since the site sits parallel music to the Sup River. Just recently, after 8 years of excavation, experts finally uncovered its beauty. Altogether, they found 18 structures including music temples, residential complexes, and a huge circular plaza. There are also ceremonial halls built on top of large step platforms along with stairways, courtyards, and carefully designed walls. These structures' music serve both practical and symbolic purposes. I mean, this was their hotspot, the place where people came together for rituals. Inside one of the structures, researchers uncovered remarkable finds like sculptures molded in raw clay that portray human figures, animals, and ceremonial objects. They also dug up stone tools such as grinders, crushers, and hammers. And remember, I said they like music, right? Well, the team also found patutus there. That's like an old-school trumpet made of giant shells brought from the Pacific Ocean. Now, if you look at the map, one thing stands out. PKO is farther inland than other corral cities we've discovered. And that's important. The city's location was completely strategic, and that's why it earned the nickname City of Social Integration. There's this theory that says Po played a key role in trading herm, atite, a mineral used since ancient times to make red pigment. Back then, this was fancy stuff. PKO likely served as a hub linking the coastal and highland villages of Sup and Wara. Maybe they traded hematite for fish and shellfish from the coastal villagers. But now comes the big question. What happened to the people who lived there? Why was PCO completely abandoned after thousands of years? Well, that still remains a mystery. There are different theories about why the Corral Supup civilization disappeared and why their most important cities were left abandoned. One of them is the maritime hypothesis. It suggests that societies first developed along the coast, relying heavily on fishing, and only later moved inland. So in that view, cities were abandoned as people shifted away from them. But that doesn't fit Po, right? I mean, it's way too far inland to count as a seaside city. So, it's hard to say what really happened. If you look at their main city, archaeologists haven't found any solid evidence of one big disaster. No massive earthquake, no huge music flood, nothing like that. And the same goes with Pina. There's just no sign of a single event that suddenly wiped them out. The likely explanation is a shift in climate. A change in the weather could have caused long droughts that affected local farming that would have forced people to abandon their cities, like what happened in northern Mesopotamia. Now, can we say that with absolute certainty? Honestly, no. It's much more likely that several distinct factors led to the decline of that society. They might have also faced some internal conflict, issues of leadership or organization, for example. But that's impossible to prove with archaeology alone. Either way, PKO is a huge music discovery. It gives us new clues to better understand the crisis the Corral civilization, music, faced before its collapse. But for now, many of their secrets are still waiting to be uncovered. And there's still so much for researchers to figure out about how this civilization was born and how its music evolved over time. If you want to visit Pago, here's some good news. The site has recently been open to the public. It's about a 4.5 hour drive from Lima, and you can get there either by a private vehicle or through tourist services. Yeah, it's not the easiest journey, but the breathtaking landscapes will music make up for it. And if you don't have the time or the money to fly all the way to Peru, don't music worry. If you know Spanish, you can explore a virtual museum dedicated to coral. It features 10 thematic rooms designed to take you on a journey back to the origins of civilization. You'll find photos, videos, infographics, music. It's a whole immersive experience. Of course, it's not the same as standing on the site itself. Music, but it still offers a fascinating glimpse into the world of the oldest known civilization in the Americas. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright.